Hey everyone. So things are a little crazy right now with COVID, politics, and I just got started thinking. Actually, I was just doing a bunch of reading, and a common complaint or common life experience we all have is that the proverbial two voices in our head, right? You know the feeling. One is like, do this. The other one is don't. And a lot of times one is very powerful, very strong, like takes control. The other one, that's filled with shame. And have you noticed like your moods might switch? One day you feel really powerful, or you take a strip out of somebody, and another day you feel incredibly helpless and hopeless. And we have those two voices in our head, and they create the inability to know which one do we listen to and which one's right. Creates a tremendous amount of indecision and fear. I know for me, it's something I battled for decades. And there's a reason why. There's a reason we get those two voices. And this is so important. I took notes on it because I'm going to refer to it because I don't want to leave any part out, because this will really help you understand what's happening inside of you, because that feeling is chaotic. It feels toxic. It feels scary. It feels powerless. Your thoughts and feelings are going in and out. And that indecision, I've done videos where I talk about the difference between our trauma gut and our true gut feeling. And really, this is part of it. And so really what we're experiencing in that moment is codependence. That's why we have the two voices. And it comes from two things, all right? The voice, that voice that is filled with shame and disempowered and sad and all that, that comes from either less than perfect parenting or even some sort of abusive situation when we were 5 years age or younger. Or it comes from, did you have a parent who was maybe mousy? Most of us have had parents where one was dominant and controlling, or ran the house, and the other one was kind of quiet and reserved. So that voice of yours that doesn't know what to do, it either came from before 5 years of age with less than perfect parenting or abusive parenting, or you learned it from the disempowered parent, all right? And so here's some of the characteristics of that. Usually what this is called is the wounded child, all right? So when you're in that voice, I want you to recognize it. It's just the wounded child inside of you, okay? That's all it is, all right? There's nothing bad or defective. It's just that perfectly imperfect wounded child inside of you. And this voice is generally filled with shame, a sense of self-loathing, worthlessness. They're overly vulnerable, will tend to share a lot about themselves. They'll feel helpless and powerless, very needy, dependent, very chaotic in their thoughts and actions, tend to feel very less than, when we're in that place. One down, they're boundaryless. They could be, just puking their life story or let people run all over them. Their life and their thoughts and feelings tend to be out of control. They tend to feel bad about themselves quite often. They're overwhelmed, flooded, and dissociative. This happens to me a lot. I do this. And for me, this was my mother, I got this part of my voice from my mother. And so when things happen, I tend to dissociate. I not completely, but I go blank and numb. It takes me, I'm what they call a slow processor because of my trauma. It takes me several days sometimes to come up with an answer to something. I shut down. I drop into my wounded child, okay, from the less than perfect parenting that I experienced, all right? Now, here's the thing. Almost all of us experience the wounded child. But once we start to become older, we develop reason. We develop language skills. And so almost all of us morph into what's called the adapted wounded child, all right? And that it's because we figured out the family dynamic. We're like, okay, wait, mom's this way, dad's this way. This is how everyone's less than perfect. And so this is now the role. It's an adaptive role that I'm going to assume to survive these dynamics. Now, this is where it gets tricky, because this is most of us. This is what most of us consider mature. It's really a child masquerading as an adult. And this, again, comes from less than perfect parenting or even abusive parenting, usually between the ages of 6 and 17. And it can mirror the more aggressive, dominant parent that you had. All right. Now, the characteristics of this, and this will sound like when we're in our, like I'm an adult, I've got control of this. This is what it looks like. We're very angry, shut down. We're walled off from our feelings and sharing them with others. Uptight, controlling, better than. We go one up. We tend to feel all powerful, aggressive, judgmental, perfectionist. The perfectionist hides the feelings. We'll hide our feelings also, and we'll manipulate to get what we want. So think about all this stuff on Facebook right now. That's everybody, for the most part. People are getting highly judgmental, highly controlling, saying you should wear a mask, don't wear a mask, you should get rid of cops, have cops, be a racist, don't be a racist. That's the adaptive, wounded child that you're seeing all across social media and politics, everything. It's people's brokenness. But see, we consider that adult maturity. It's actually a child stuck in a voice that isn't theirs, okay? And so we as a culture pride ourselves on this mature aspect, but it mirrors that abusive, controlling parent. So think about it. When you have those two voices, this is a suggestion for you to try on. When you hear those voices, ask yourself, does this sound like mom or dad? Which one was the more aggressive one? Nowadays, it used to be always the man was the aggressive one. Well, in the changing social dynamics, that's flipped. Mostly it's the women who are the over-empowered, aggressive, dominant one in relationships, not the man anymore. And so depending on your age, this might be your mother, all right? Also, ethnicities. Certain cultures, the woman is much more dominant. So, think about that. But when you're fighting those two voices, what you're stuck between is the wounded child and the adaptive wounded child. Neither one is adult. Both are adaptations that we are stuck in childhood, and that's why our thoughts are so indecisive. That's why we're so filled with fear. That's why we're so filled with insecurity, because that's chaotic. It's not us. It's not the authentic self we were meant to be, but we haven't learned these dynamics, and so we're unaware. We're not bad or defective, and our parents aren't bad or defective either. We're just stuck, okay? So what does a truly functional adult look like? Right down the center, right in between there. See, an adult doesn't go over-empowered or under-empowered. An adult sees both as perfectly imperfect. And so when having a discussion with somebody, there's no judgment on the one up and there's no shame on the one down. It's just, oh, wow, I never thought of it that way. Huh, yeah, I guess I do that, instead of feeling bad and worthless. Or going up here and going, I don't want to talk about it. I'm better than you. I've got it all figured out. You're wrong. Do you see those extremes? When we're in those extremes, we are in our wounded child, all right? Moderation, adulthood, authenticity is in the center. We don't have to bounce between those polar opposites. So when you find yourself bouncing emotionally in your thoughts and feelings between extreme power and extreme disempowerment, you're fighting the parental voices or the less than perfect or abusive parenting you experienced, okay? Now here's the thing. There's no amount of positive thinking that'll fix this. No amount of the power of now. No amount of the power of the law of attraction. No prayer will fix it. None of the other great systems that are out there to teach people, none of that will overcome this. This takes expertise work to do, to learn about the wounded child and the adapted child and learn what moderation is, to discover that in yourself. Well, that's what I do. It's one of the many things I do. And so if you want to get rid of that fear, if you want to get rid of that indecision, if you want to get rid of all of that chaos and have truly loving relationships, have financial security that we all deserve, stop the self-sabotage financially, emotionally, have incredible friendships, heal those wounded relationships in our families. There's only one way to do it. You have to become an expert in these codependent dynamics. And that's what I happen to be an expert in. And so if you're, done with all of that and looking for that solution, send me a private message. I'll be happy to get you on the right path, whether it's working together one-on-one, whether it's my university courses teach you. So you can learn the difference, but you can learn the difference between those two voices, and you can find moderation or your authentic self again. And that's when you have that, then you can put in place the power of now. Then you can put in place the law of attraction. Then you can put in place prayer, positive thinking. All of those wonderful systems finally work because you're in moderation. If that's what you want, send me a private message. I'll be happy to help you. All right. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Take care.